What if Anakin Skywalker was trained as a Jedi Shadow? The Jedi Shadows are a branch of the Jedi Sentinels and are essentially the secret agents of the Jedi Order. They focus on stealth with the main goal of neutralizing dark side threats, particularly those tied to the Sith or their followers. They operate covertly, often working outside the boundaries of standard Jedi practice. Early on in Anakin's training, he is identified as uniquely suited for the work of a Jedi Shadow due to his raw power, resourcefulness, and intense emotions. Anakin was perfect to be a Jedi Shadow because he didn't grow up at the Jedi Temple, but rather the lower levels of human life, and thus would know how to blend in. He knew civilian life and had a unique perspective on how to deal with problems, and was extremely good with technology. After the Sith were revealed in 32 BBY, the Jedi Shadow program was bolstered as they knew their skills would be required in the coming years. After a couple of years of Anakin's training, his strength blossomed. Skills with droids, force abilities, and lightsaber combat, coupled with his role as the Chosen One, inherently tied to defeating the dark side, the Council started to believe he would be best trained as a Jedi Shadow to fulfill his duty. He started off his training under Kenobi, but later on was transferred to Jedi Master Taria Damson, a close friend and previous lover of Obi-Wan Kenobi. She was a human female, Jedi Master, and Jedi Shadow. Through this, Anakin's training took a different turn. Anakin was trained heavily on stealth, investigation, and knowledge of the dark side. This was a big change to the original timeline. Anakin was made aware of the dark side from an early age, and became comfortable with the idea of it. He was trained to develop strong mental discipline, as their missions often placed them in close contact with dangerous Sith teachings or artifacts. Because of this, Anakin was trained heavily on the ability to resist the lure of the dark side, making him less susceptible to corruption, forcing him to confront his fears and attachments. All Jedi Shadows had to be cleansed of any temptation in their minds that may lead to the dark side. Early on in Anakin's training, his master sensed the attachment in Anakin to his mother. He thought about her often, how he left her to slavery on Tatooine, and felt he was to blame. Taria brought this up with Anakin, and he admitted his feelings are still strong towards his master. He knows it's not the Jedi way to think like this, but he can't help it. Master Desmond thinks on how to tackle this problem with Anakin, and they come up with a solution. They fly to Tatooine together, as Master Desmond has promised Anakin that they will free his mother from slavery and ensure she is living the life she deserves, to rid Anakin of the guilt he feels towards her. But once they arrive, they find that she's no longer a slave, but rather has been freed by Klieg Lars and married him. They go to their house, and Anakin reunites with his mother, and that night they all spend the evening together, sharing stories and tales of Anakin's training. He leaves that night, extremely happy to see his mother doing so well, but Master Desmond speaks to Shmi and tells her that this will be the last time she will see Anakin, that the guilt he felt towards her was a block in his training, and now that she's freed and happy, Anakin will now be able to move forward. Deep down, Shmi knew this and thought it was for the best, but she would miss Anakin deeply. With allowing Anakin to see his mother, he promised Master Desmond that he would seriously train to let go of his attachment to Shmi, and this involved Desmond putting up a force block in his mind, severing the higher processing areas from his memory of Shmi, and finally Anakin could begin to move away from the demons of his past. Anakin would go on many missions with Master Damson, often involving infiltration, sabotage, and investigation in enemy territory. Because the Jedi now knew the Sith had returned, the Shadows were very active during this period, looking for any hint of clues to their identity, of what they had been doing over the past 1,000 years. In Anakin's later years of training, he learned the subtleties of being a Jedi Shadow. The Jedi Sentinels were allowed to use a couple of dark side techniques, and Anakin learned to do this. The first one he learned was called Meku Duru, and it involved asserting one's will over a piece of technology, dominating it and bending it to one's desires. And with Anakin's expert in technology, he was very good at this. Because Anakin was a Shadow, and given more open-mindedness about the Force would have benefited him greatly. In the original timeline, Anakin believed the Jedi were keeping things from him in the Force, which essentially they were with the dark side. But in this timeline, Anakin learned the perils of the dark side up close at an early age. The Shadows were also allowed to use Force Choke, subtly utilizing the dark side, and was a technique that Anakin favored immensely. Another technique from the Jedi Shadow's repertoire was Force Echo, the ability for a Jedi Shadow, and allowed the user to feel traces of dark side energy and was able to access short visions of where it came from and why it had occurred. And after he'd mastered all of these, Anakin was a fully fledged Jedi Shadow. We now reach the events of the Clone War. At this point, Anakin was granted the rank of Jedi Knight for his success during his missions with his master, but they continued to work together during the war. War breaks out around the galaxy, and Anakin and Master Desmond are tasked with investigating the Sith and ultimately taking them out if possible. They start by breaking into the Separatist stronghold of Geonosis. This is where the Clone War began, and Separatist Council was formed, so no doubt will hold some secrets. They break into the communications room and use their stealth to sneak past any guards, ensuring they don't make any noise. They hack into the mainframe and start to track messages between members of the Separatist Council, looking for anything that could lead to the Sith in the contents of the messages. They played one by Count Dooku and an unknown man. They listen to the contents and hear Dooku call the person Master, and through this, the both of them conclude that Dooku mustn't be the main leader of the Separatists, but rather there is a greater Sith Lord, his master pulling the strings. Next they go to Latho Minor, now on a quest to find the identity of Dooku's master. Anakin lets the Force guide him to the planet as he believes he will find answers here. As he enters the atmosphere, Anakin feels the Force call out towards him and direct him towards the outskirts of the planet. The dark side was here, he could feel it, and he let it guide where he flew. They landed in front of a cave system. Anakin and Master Taria enter and follow the various networks until they turned a corner to find Darth Maul, who's been hiding on this planet for over a decade. This is not what Anakin and his master expected. Anakin was told that Kenobi killed Maul all those years ago on Naboo, but they can use this to his advantage. Maul knows who Dooku's master must be, since he was his apprentice before Dooku. They try to talk to Maul, but he starts blabbering nonsense and not making any sense. He must have gone crazy in his time of solitude, but together they use the Force to probe his mind, and they see flickers of his memories, scarce images, and they search for the identity of Sidious. But one thing stands out in his mind, the planet Sojourn. They can't probe his mind anymore, and conclude that Sojourn is all the information they're going to get. They captured Maul and take him back to the Jedi Temple, where the Council decides what to do with him, and meanwhile, Anakin and his master go to Sojourn. Sojourn was a remote and secluded moon, but when they entered, they both felt that the dark side had existed on this moon at an extremely high level. They landed on the moon and go to a residence, which is now complete rubble. It must have been bombed years earlier, but they land nonetheless, and start walking towards the wreckage. Anakin starts using Force Echo and sees images of a Sith Lord conducting experiments with the dark side on different beings, but feels the Sith Lord is not currently alive. Not the one in the Clone War, but maybe the one before him. Anakin was sensing the Force Echo of Darth Plagueis and his Sith laboratory. They walk through the wreckage of his lab and conclude that the Sith conducted experiments here for decades, and now for certain know that the Sith returning isn't new, that they've been hiding on small moons, such as Sojourn, for what could have been hundreds of years. Together Anakin and Master Desmond have learned a lot about the Sith and Bane's lineage, but now decide they must investigate Dooku to bring about an end to the war. They go on a covert mission to Sereno, the heart of the Confederacy of Independent Systems, and break into Dooku's palace and enter his throne room. Dooku wasn't currently in the room, but they could feel he was here in the palace. They hack his computer and start reading through his communication logs and find something most interesting: regular communication between Dooku and someone from Coruscant at the coordinates of the Senate office. This shocked Anakin and Desmond. Could Dooku have spies in the Senate? And they think back to what Dooku told Obi-Wan, that the Sith were in control of the Republic. They pause these thoughts when they hear Dooku and his guards returning and don't have time to investigate further. They escape discreetly, but go to Dooku's hangar bay, where Anakin uses his ability, Miku Duru, on the Navi computer of Dooku's personal ship to manipulate it so that it sends data to R2-D2 about the location of wherever Dooku's ship goes, so they know where he is at any moment. From now they return to Coruscant and wait for Dooku's Navi computer to give R2 the details of his whereabouts. But the location where he travelled next shocked them. It was Coruscant. They tracked Dooku's ship to the industrial regions of the planet and decided to go there personally. They mask their presence in the Force and break into the facility. They see Dooku's ship there and him beside it, but there was someone there they hadn't seen before. Someone who was strong in the dark side. The person turns and they can see the face under his hood, Chancellor Palpatine. They couldn't believe it. The Chancellor was in cahoots with the Sith? But what was said next shocked them to their core. Dooku started calling Palpatine Master, and it all made sense to them. Palpatine must be the Sith Lord in control of the Clone War, and the Sith essentially controlled the war from both sides. They quickly pulled out their recording device and recorded a short conversation between the two, and escaped before they could be detected. They take this recording back to the Jedi Temple and play it in front of the Jedi Council. None of them could believe it. Evidence of Dooku calling Palpatine Master was as much proof as they ever needed. The Jedi realized they'd been dancing in the Sith palms all along, doing all of their bidding without question. They can't believe it. They think on how to move on from here. Palpatine must be arrested, but they need more concrete proof than this. If they presented this footage to the Senate now, it would be inconclusive. There will be debates around its validity, and Palpatine ultimately could use this to turn the Senate against the Jedi. They need more, and know the Jedi Shadows will be pivotal in this. They task Anakin and Master Desmond to sneak inside Palpatine's office and plant extra security cameras, which will be pivotal in their plan. Anakin successfully does this, placing the cameras in the perfect location so every angle of the room is captured, as well as them being perfectly hidden. After these are placed, Anakin and Desmond hide in his office, out of sight, using their mastery of stealth and Force concealment, as Yoda, Windu, Agen Kolar, Saisi Tin, Kit Fisto, and Obi-Wan walk into Palpatine's office. Palpatine greets them, asking what he can do for the Jedi today, as Windu plays the video of Palpatine and Dooku and asks the Chancellor to explain. Palpatine's smile fades and presses a button on his desk, deactivating the cameras in his office, and laughs at the Jedi, telling them he didn't think they'd figure it out this early, but there's nothing they can do. If they attack him now, he will easily turn the Senate against them and push the Jedi out of power. Palpatine sits there confident, as Windu tells him that he and Dooku will not get away with their actions, but Palpatine smirks, telling them that they already have Dooku leading the Separatists and him leading the Republic, and together they already control the galaxy together, and there's nothing the Jedi can do. As soon as Palpatine said this, the Jedi ignited their blades, now knowing they have everything they need with the cameras Anakin planted. Palpatine didn't expect this, but he will accept his arrest and turn this against the Jedi. He turns his cameras back on to capture the moment, but behind him at the same time, out of hiding, come Anakin and his master Taria Desmond. This shocked Palpatine. Why didn't he sense them there? How long could they have been hidden there? But what had they been doing when they were talking? Palpatine knew of the shadows and what they did, and realized they must have been the ones who captured the footage of him and Dooku, and it's likely they planted their own cameras in this room, showing Palpatine incriminating him and Dooku. Palpatine curses. He now has no choice but to fight and escape. He presses another button on his desk, causing smoke to be cast throughout the entire office, temporarily blinding his vision. With this, he cuts down Kit Fisto and Agen Kolar as he rushes towards Anakin and his master, but they sense Palpatine before he arrived. They were used to the darkness as Jedi shadows and pushed him back with the Force so that he couldn't escape through them. The smoke dissipated, and the council advanced forward as Palpatine caught his footing and attacked with his lightsaber, but he was simply outmatched and outnumbered by the number of Jedi there. Every move he made was blocked and answered by a Jedi, and there was nothing he could do. Eventually Yoda slashed across his thumb, causing him to drop his blade as Windu caught the lightning that followed, whilst Anakin kicked him forward with the Force to the ground, and the other Jedis jumped on him, subduing him and bringing him in handcuffs. They bring Palpatine to the Senate and declare to everyone that they've arrested him, which is answered by cries of fury throughout the Senate, until they play the first recording of Dooku and Palpatine conspiring in the industrial region of Coruscant, followed by the Jedi confronting Palpatine in his office, with him incriminating himself, admitting that he and Dooku are working together and essentially run the galaxy. The cries of fury turn on Palpatine, who realizes the Jedi have fully foiled his plans, or more like Anakin and Desmond successfully exposed them. Palpatine is sent to prison, whilst a new democratic election will be held in a few days' time. Meanwhile, Anakin is still in control of Dooku's Navi computer through Meku Duru, and the council decide his capture is paramount, and with this, the war will be ended. This becomes their top priority, as they track his ship visiting Cato Nemoria, and send 4 council members and 3 Jedi Masters to the planet, along with a massive legion of clones. With this, they capture the planet and prevent Dooku's escape, and successfully shoot down and capture him and his ship before he could escape. With this, they use Dooku as a bargaining chip for the Separatist surrender. And finally, after 2 long years, the Clone War is over. The Jedi assist in the transition of power, both to the new Chancellor Mon Mothma, and with the surrender treaty forged with the Separatists. But after this, Anakin and his master are summoned in front of the Jedi Council. They are praised for their role in the end of the war, and say outright that the Sith could not have been defeated without them, and Anakin truly did complete his role as the Chosen One. They conclude that Taria Desmond will be appointed lead Jedi Shadow, and Anakin Skywalker will be granted the rank of Jedi Master. They accept both promotions gracefully, and are tasked with finding and bringing back all Sith artifacts that Palpatine has hidden around the galaxy, and with this, they can truly ensure the Sith are extinct once and for all. Anakin was extremely happy with this. He always knew he wanted the rank of Master, and now he would spend his days travelling around the galaxy, something the 9-year-old boy on Tatooine dreamed of. But before he left Coruscant to embark on this mission, he went to the Senate offices. There was one thing that was on Anakin's mind for years, more accurately, a person he wanted to meet again after some time. He walked through the Senate offices to the office of the Senator of Naboo, Padme Amidala. He introduces himself as Anakin Skywalker, and she replies with a surprised smile, telling Anakin she can't believe how grown up he is, and the rest is history. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to watch What If Obi-Wan Was Reborn with all his memories, and What If Anakin Never Turned but Padme Still Died. Don't forget to check out Fantasy Sabers for the best sabers on the market, and may the Force be with you.